All right, welcome to the show and tell. Lady is a little under the weather, so I'm going to be helping you out the best I can. But we're still here. We're not going to do Ask an Engineer tonight. I'll have some links and more that I'm going to put in the various chats. I'm still going to put the discount code. So if you're watching this live, go to Discord right after the show and tell, and I'll put the discount code. And I'll also put it on some of the other social media places. But what we're going to do is catch up probably this weekend and more. We just had some international visitors and different folks visiting, and I think you got a bug. So we're gonna do show and tell though, because this is what it's all about. Show and tell. We do it every week, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. Come by, show and share your projects, things that you're doing. I'm currently working on a big tool article, not the band, which is really good, but the tools that you use. So there's Milwaukee and Hilti and DeWalt and Festool. There's all these tools, and I'm going to show some of them, and I'm also going to talk about some of the tools that we picked out for our workshop, and then maybe we'll do a little bit of a tool show and tell, a workbench type thing. Everyone has their picks, and there's no right or wrong. It's very religious with which tool, and I'm also going to have like maybe voting like which one is your favorite tool. I found that there's the right tool for the right job, and normally you'd think that there would be one company that kind of has everything, but they really don't. They make decisions, and some have almost the right thing, some don't. And so you end up having like a menagerie of tools. So I think that'll be a neat show and tell segment, feature, and more that we'll do. So show and tell also has Adafruit team members that show some of the projects and things that they're working on. We try to show some behind the scenes each week. JP, what you got going on?
All right, I'm setting up a thing. I've got a couple things here. I'll set that one up second. So first thing I want to show was I've been working on this homebrew Game Boy game project. And the latest wrinkle in it is that I'm now flashing the ROM that I create and export to an actual hardware cartridge that I can play on original hardware. So this is a Game Boy Color I've got. This one actually shows up on screen better than my other Game Boy. And you'll see here, I've got a little splash screen there for Lars Co. Games. And this is Dorky Demustard, my Dookie Demastered clone. And when we start this up, we've got just a couple of game screens here. This is actually, since it's Game Boy Color, it converts my color palette, which is mono for the original Game Boy, automatically. So this is still something that can run on a regular Game Boy. So I'll show some more features of this on the show, and I'm writing up a guide on this, but we've got progress on making the game and actually getting it put onto genuine hardware. So that's pretty exciting there. The other thing I was going to show is just the beginnings of some stuff I'm going to do with DMX 512 lighting, which is a standard used in theatrical and architectural lighting. I got one of these typical shields, Arduino shields that are out there. There's a few makers of these, a few designs that are pretty popular. And I've got this one right now, just kind of running a little loop that is sending some fade information to a couple of different lights. It sends and piggybacks on a bunch of different channels, so we can do red, green, and blue and fade. So this is some stuff I'll be talking about a little bit on the show tomorrow, and writing up a learn guide on some of the basics of DMX. And then hopefully we'll add some of our own wrinkles to the whole DMX lighting field there.
Okay, great. I'll probably show your product pick of the week in another segment in a future show. And then tomorrow, of course, is JP's workshop. So yeah, good use of the old-timey electric creature on your last thumbnail, by the way.
Oh, thank you. I love that guy. Ready Kilowatt. Yeah.
I remember where it was. I think I did a make article about like all the weirdo creatures. There was like the electric cat and like
that cat, that 9-volt cat. I don't know where that even came from, but yeah, there were some great sketchy
really
designs.
Really good
warnings that you actually are kind of think they're cooler than they should be.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks so much, JP. All right. Next up, we're going to go to Erin. Erin, what do you got going on?
Hello. This is just in time for Halloween. My new project is this light up star crown. So this is inspired by a crown worn by Hedy Lamarr in Zeitgeist Girl, 1941 movie. Hedy Lamarr, I didn't know much about her before I started this project, and she was really cool. She also invented a bunch of stuff that led to our current understanding of Bluetooth technology. Very cool. But we have new pixels in the shop that look like little stars. Aren't they super cute? And they're just basically on a strand. And this, I'm using a Cutie Pie Pico right here to power the thing, and it's running W.LED. So I didn't have to do any coding, but use some custom palette tricks and stuff like that to get these to do some really neat star golden twinkly animations. I'm working on a learn guide for this right now. Should be up probably this week in the learning system, but I am quite enjoying it. I wore it out to the Vampire Ball this weekend in Sacramento and had a really good time just rocking my lights.
Nice lights.
We interviewed the documentary filmmaker who did a movie about Hedy Lamarr, and Lamarr was mentioned when they were writing up this movie about modern people that were inventing and doing stuff. And really interesting story about what she was interested in as a hobby. And then at the time she was was a beautiful woman in the world. And she was figuring out things with torpedoes and how to do switch hop signals and a lot of neat stuff. And then of course a tragic story because a lot of the starlets and stars in that era were just completely pumped up full of uppers and downers, and just like it was kind of tragic. So interesting story and amazing look into a different world and kind of the beginnings of a lot of stuff. So thanks, Erin, for putting that together. And for folks who are curious, just search for Hedy Lamarr on the Adafruit blog, and you'll see the interview we did with the filmmaker, and then we did a bunch of other things around it, and it's a cool story. Anyways, thank you, Erin.
Okay, thanks, Erin.
All right, Tim, happy Halloween. What you got going on?
Happy Halloween. I am working on a guide that will walk you through how to create custom animations for the Adafruit LED animations library. And as part of the process, I've been building out some demos to use to explain various capabilities of that library. So most recently, I've been working on some of the grid capabilities, and I have two to show off today. The bottom one is kind of geared after Snake, with the snake roaming around the game where he eats the apple. There is no apple, but it just kind of roams around randomly and you can watch it. I should mention too, because it's based on Adafruit LED animation library, both of these are running on the same feather and they're both non-blocking. So the feather could be doing other stuff. It's not right now, but it could totally be doing anything else you wanted at the same time. And then the top one, which I think is super cool, is an implementation of Conway's Game of Life. So you kind of set which pixels you want it to start on with your cells. And then it will just run and play through the simulation. And I have it set so that if all the cells die off, it'll restart at the beginning, or if it gets stuck without moving, because there's a few patterns where they just get stuck and they don't actually do anything, then it will also start back over at the beginning. But there are some that get into repeating loops, and those just kind of keep running forever, which I think is pretty cool as well. And then the last thing I'll mention about it, which I found really interesting, is the way that the constraints of the size of the grid. It's a relatively small grid as far as like Conway's Game of Life goes. But it's interesting to see the way that the smaller grid actually affects the way that the cells behave. Because if they get too close to the wall, then it means they can't spawn any more outside, which then affects the future generations and changes the behavior. So like this one is sort of mirrored when it starts out, because they kind of meet in the middle and they make the same pattern on both sides. But then when it gets closer to the edge, they actually grow distinct and do different things for a little bit, because one of them runs into the edge and the other one doesn't, which I found pretty fascinating. So the guide will be out soon, and check that out if you want to learn how to make not only these animations, but anything else that you can think of with the animations library.
Okay,
This is great. Cool. One of our first kits was a Make Game of Life kit. And one of the things that's always hard is there's a lot of scientists, like Stephen Wolfram, for example, is like, oh, everything's made out of these like little tiny bits of information. That's how the universe forms. And it's hard to follow along with some of the really advanced physics that folks are trying to push forward, where it's like there's nodes and these turn into particles and eventually we have a universe. And when you really dig into it, it's like, oh, you built like it's a Game of Life thing. And the bigger the goldfish bowl, the more things that can happen. So I like that this constraint that you have, because it does change. Because when we had the Game of Life kit, the more tiles you had, the more it could do. And then they have the ones that can fly off, the flyers. That can't happen on the smaller ones. But it's really neat because you could see how very simple patterns can eventually turn into emergent behavior, and you don't have to like solve unifying quantum physics and general relativity and spending 10 years. You can actually play with it. It's like, oh, this is a really neat thing. And if you're looking for a pattern that's kind of random, that just kind of ambiently glows in the background, this is also a really good one. That looks like, oh, it's computing or it's doing something, because it'll get stuck in the loop, or it'll keep going, or it'll look nice. Like that just looked like an eyes, and that looks like a mouth there. So you can kind of look at clouds and be like, oh, that's a rabbit.
Yeah, totally.
Emergent behavior.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much, Tim. This is delightful as usual.
Thanks, Tim.
Sure.
Looking forward to it.
All righty. Okay, everybody. This is our Halloween Eve show.
I think everyone's getting their costumes.
Everyone's working on their costumes. We have some stuff to do. We're going to be giving up candy, and I have some more lights to put up. So we'll see everybody next week. Thank you so much for tuning in. Like I said, we're not going to do Ask an Engineer tonight. This one's going to go to bed, and I'm going to do other stuff. And I put the discount code that we would have done on the show, which is Pixel Shifter, 10% off all the way up to midnight. So this is super secret deal for everyone. I'll have a different code next week. So please feel free to use it. Save a buck or two. And thank you everyone for being patient as our meat bodies rebel against us from time to time. So we will see you later. Bye, everybody. See you next week.
Bye, everybody.